Back with me, Azon Ali, on a special report for Crime Watch. Today, we are going to talk, discuss, and dig further into fraud. So, what is fraud? Based on the definition by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiner, ACFE, fraud is defined in the broader sense, which encompasses any crime for gain that uses deception as its principal modus operandi. Fraud is further defined by Black's Law Dictionary as a knowing misrepresentation of the truth or concealment of a material fact to induce another to act to his or her detriment. Fraud is a false representation of a matter of fact, whether by word or by way of conduct. Sometimes, fraud could be traced by false or misleading allegation or by concealment of which should have been disclosed that deceive or it's intended to deceive so that the individual will act upon it to her or his advantages. It is deliberately misstatement. It is intentional. It may be a misappropriation of asset. It may be a fraudulent financial reporting. It may be a criminal breach of trust, and it is always and almost a concealment from others. Fraud is deliberate meaning, which means it is not a mistake. Fraud is designed to benefit one party while harming another party. That might be a company or individual. It is always a far-forward idea and plan to trick the victim, which is difficult for the fraudster to claim or defend as a mistake. So from here, we will look at the recent case which was reported. This is the recent case reported in the newspaper, so I will read through from the newspaper, The Star. Okay, let's read through the case. Okay, an accountant of an event company was charged in session court in Petaling Jaya for 8 counts of committing criminal breach of trust (CBT) in relation to the company's payment to its suppliers involving RM100,000. So, Manja Burhan, 36, an accountant for Syarikat Terlalu Istimewa Sendirian Berhad, was accused of committing CBT via check, which is amounting to 23,000, 19,000, 18,000, 15,000, 13,000, 8,000, 3,000, and 1,000 each, belonging to the company. The money was meant for the payment of company supplier. Manja was alleged to have committed the offence at the company's bearing the address number 73 Jalan Penchala here between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. from September 9 to December 13 last year. She was charged under Section 408 of the Penal Code, which carries a maximum of 14 years jail and whipping and a fine on conviction. Manja later claimed trial to the charges before Session Court Judge Zamri Bakar after they were read to her on Monday. Judge Zamri later fixed bail at 30,000 ringgit pending mention on August 5. Nur Aisyah Dato Ahmad Zakiuddin was the Deputy Public Prosecutor, while Counsel Jayenda Rao acted for Manja. So that is the brief case of the criminal breach of trust.
Honey, I'm home. Baby, come here.
Bruh.
Aish, it's too many bills and the motorbike is too expensive. I need more money.
The next day.
I've been doing this for so long and I deserve to get high salary and bonus. Since no one really monitor the vendor account other than me, let's try to create a dummy account and get something from it for my rewards.
3 days later.
Yes.
I think I found some sheet transactions here. It shows that there are different types of expenses, but same correspondence.
Different type of expenses, but same correspondent. Is it a lot? It's a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
100k. So you might want to check.
Yeah. The correspondent address is the same. The transactions are all different. I think we need to inquire with the management about this. Right? Sure.
I'll make some copies for you.
Yeah. It's different. Alright. Okay. Thank you.
Later that same evening.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you? How are you guys?
We are good.
Oh, have you eaten your breakfast?
Yeah, already.
Oh, where have you eaten your breakfast?
Where we at?
Across the road, nearby the office.
Yeah, nearby
oh,
office.
Yeah, I thought near this office or nearby your office lah.
Yeah.
So what's up?
Actually, we came here because regarding the annual audit, we found some suspicious expenses, purchases to the same correspondent address. I think you should look at it because my junior auditor, she found a mistake,
Yeah.
right? Not mistake, the suspicious. Yeah.
Alright. Can I take
Yeah,
a look?
you should take a look. We bought a few samples of the expenses because the address is all the same, the correspondent address, but the expenses and purchase is all different. The amount is quite big actually.
How big is the amount?
If we talk roughly around how much?
100,000.
Yeah,
Are
100,000.
you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
we will send you the report of the findings. Do you know why is it? What happened here?
I don't know what let me have some discussion with my finance executive first, and then I revert back to you.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Okay? Yeah, so okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Alright.
Alright. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So this one I leave it to you.
Alright.
Alright.
And then I will revert back to you lah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Hello, Manja? Yes, I'm speaking. Can I see you right now? Where are you? Oh, alright. Can you see me in my office? Yeah, right now. Yeah, okay. Alright, bye. You want to see me, boss? Yeah. Come in. Sit down, friends. So, I'd like to ask you about a few things that the auditor have come out. Can you please explain this to me? All these transactions that have been made in the past year. Do you have an explanation to give to me? Manja, I've been trusting you. For all these 6 years you have been working for me, I've trusted you. I have all the proof here that you took all the money. The 100,000. What? The 100,000. What did you do? What was it? I'm so sorry, boss. No, I'm so pissed off right now. It's not a small amount of money. Do you have any justification for this? No, boss. I'm so sorry. There's no sorry that can answer this. So sorry, boss. I'm sorry.
Is your name Manja?
Yeah.
Working under the company accounts?
Yes.
You are under arrest for committing fraud. Please follow me to the Balai Police.
No.
Follow me now.
We take this case as an example to deliberate the root cause of the fraud and the motivation behind the act based on fraud trial theory, which is pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. For element number 1, pressure. Manja was being pressured by the husband. The collision of her personal integrity with the affection or love towards the husband had caused her to commit such criminal breach of trust. The second element is opportunity. Based on the fact that Manja is the sole person who have the control and being responsible from receiving the cash, making payment to the vendor or supplier, up to the reconciliation of accounting record. In this case, we could identify that the manager trusted Manja, which the manager herself did not validate the document prepared by Manja for her execution. Manja then realized all of those as a loophole in the system, which she later manipulated the weaknesses of the whole setup of responsibility and duty. Last but not least is the rationalization. Manja rationalized her action of fraud by self-reviewing herself as underpaid and overworked. She had been with the company for 6 years and somehow she feels that the company is not rewarding her accordingly. Then she feels that taking some money is not a fraud. Then we move to the next, which is the responsibility of internal auditor. The first responsibility of the internal auditor is fraud deterrence and fraud detector. Internal auditor assists the management with the evaluation of the internal controls used to detect or mitigate fraud. Internal auditor also responsible to evaluate the organization assessment of fraud risk. Usually, internal auditor also involved in fraud investigation. Then, internal auditor is also the appropriate resource for assessing the effectiveness of what management has implemented. Last but not least, internal auditor is a tool to communicate to the management as soon as possible when they suspected fraud may exist, even if the potential effect on the financial statement would be immaterial. Then we move to the responsibility of the management. Management is responsible to design internal control and environment to prevent, detect, and mitigate fraud. They also responsible to identify every and each risk of fraud. Management also responsible to take appropriate action to ensure that controls are in place to prevent and detect fraud. Last one, management should create a positive workplace environment that will improve morale and loyalty, and perhaps when everything are in order and in control, fraud might not happen. So, as a conclusion, fraud includes any intentional or deliberate act to deprive another of property or money by guilt, deception, or other unfair means. There are two takeaways from this case. The first one is, in many instances, fraud of misappropriation of asset or criminal breach of trust, whether it is cash, stock, inventories, or equipment, are used for personal gain and benefit. The second one is, when internal control are poor or weak, fraud can be concealed by manipulating the accounting or inventory record. When somebody can have access to not only the recording of the fraudulent transaction, the same person have an access to the theft of assets. Normally, the occasion happen when there is lack of segregation of duties. Thank you.
Fraud. Fraud is when a person intentionally deceive another person for their own personal gain. Yes, it is. I think what she did is ultimately wrong. She inappropriately transferred the money into her account instead of transfer it into the company account. I don't think that she did that without a purpose. She might want to do something with the money. If I were her, I wouldn't dare to do that because I cannot bear the consequences if I've been caught with the management. No, and also it would tarnish my records and my reputation in the future. In my opinion, I think the management have the important role in preventing these things from happen, such as they should put better price for the salary for the employees. I believe that she did all that because she was pressured with her surrounding. She wanted to do something with the money, such as solving her problems. Maybe she have a loan or anything related to it. Or else, the management also can set up programs, especially for their employees. They can do team buildings, they can do counseling, or anything that can solve the conflicts between them or share their problems to each other. This can also outgrow their company's environment so that they have positive environment so they can work happily. In my opinion, it should be based on the amount that they have swindled, such as the bigger the amount, the bigger the punishment. So if it's necessary for them to be terminated, so the company should terminate them. If in this case, the amount that she did is quite big, so she might need to be convicted.
What I know about fraud is some kind of internal embezzlement, or more commonly known as employee theft. It is when an employee is put in a high position of trust and they will try to manipulate the accounting records to hide all the stole funds. And it could happen from the smallest of things, such as when retail employees taking the gift cards without the surveillance of their manager, to the biggest of things, such as an employee creating a fake invoice payment to a non-existent supplier. In the case, I could see the management is dumping everything on the girl, giving her responsibility, access, as well as opportunity to commit the fraudulent activities. So maybe they could strengthen their internal control by providing assistance to help oversee all the accounting process, and maybe they could also set up a certain procedure where authorization from the higher ups is needed when conducting a certain amount of payments. Will I commit fraud? I don't think so, because I have integrity and I'm actually very scared of people with high authorities. So yeah, no. From how I see it, it's not totally the accountant's fault because she was just overwhelmed by the amount of pressure put on her to provide financially for her family. So yeah, and there's actually several more layers to this where it should be blamed too. For example, our economy, where everyone is being underpaid for the crazy amount of workload that they get. So you would expect this kind of fraudulent activities to happen. So instead, maybe the management should have done something in the first place to avoid fraud. But even so, the accountant still should be held responsible because she did not uphold the integrity of her job. So yeah. I don't think the fine penalties would be relevant to impose on these fraudsters, because what if the fraudster already have so much debt, then how would they pay the fine? So maybe like give them extra jail time or do community service would be okay. But still, everything should depends on the fraudster's position and their income. Like for instance, if the fraudster is someone from a higher position like CEO, CFO, then go ahead, like find them, make them go bankrupt.
Have you heard the recent fraud case?
Yeah, I've heard the recent fraud and it's on the news. Yeah, everywhere.
So
Like,
do you know what is fraud actually?
fraud is, I think, something that is you want to manipulate intentionally for your own gain or for your own advantage.
So what do you feel or think about the fraud case?
To me, I think the fraud is that company is very awful and it shouldn't be done by a very high profile company because yeah, it shouldn't be in a corporate world. That's a very wrong thing to do.
So are you some of the loyal customer? Have you buy the
Yes.
product from this company?
Yes, eventually I am one of their loyalist customers, so I'm very disappointed somehow.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay, thank you for your time, sir. Alright, bye.
Bye.
Hi, good afternoon. So, I just want to ask you, what is fraud in your own opinion?
I think fraud, in my own opinion, is something that you lie to get something for your own use, own benefit. Yeah.
So, for your personal gain?
Yeah, yes.
So, okay. So, how do you think you can prevent or mitigate the effects of fraud?
I think it's hard to prevent fraud in the corporate sector, but then it's actually up to you. If you think that's wrong, then you don't do, and don't get influenced by others. So if you know wrong, then wrong. Don't do that.
Okay, alright. So, what is the most recent case of fraud that you read on the news?
I don't think it's that recent, but it's about 1 MDB.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
If you could commit fraud, what is the purpose for?
If can, I don't want to do fraud, but let's say if I have to, maybe a good purpose, of course, like helping others. Maybe something like if I can manipulate something, so at least for contribute to society, but not just for me. I know fraud is for your own benefit, but I think my benefit is to others. So yeah, in a good way. Okay.
So you're just saying like why don't you just steal from the big fish in order to feed the small fish?
Yeah, because the big people won't know.
Alright, okay. Okay. Thank you.
We conclude that fraud is so, as a conclusion, fraud includes any intentional or deliberate act to deprive another of property or money by guilt, deception, or other unfair means.
Again. Aku macam 1 second tengok phone aku tak ada notification. Why do you look at your phone if you don't have any notification?
Ya, aku delete ni.
Delete lagi. Tak, kau letak je phone kau kat bawah. Bila dah bunyi pun kau angkat. Macam tu. Kau macam tengah.
Yes.
Baby, come here. Jangan aku tengok.
There's no sorry for this. I'm so pissed off right now. I'm so sorry.
Sir. Hello, sir. Yes. Have you heard the recent fraud case recently?
You mean the terlalu terlebih istimewa?